Really, the biggest shortcut to success is paying a mentor to teach you exactly what they know. You can fast forward all of the hard comings and the problems that you're going to face, and rather than trying to figure it out by yourself, you can really learn and shortcut your way to success. Welcome to Arbitrage to Equity, the show where you'll learn the exact tools, techniques, and action steps that people are using every day to build true passive income that transforms their lives and the lives of their families. I'm your host, Tom Swan. Now let's get down to details. Hello, welcome to Arbitrage to Equity. I'm your host, Tom Swan, and I'm going to be taking you along the path that I've taken to build my business through all the trials and tribulations, become an entrepreneur over the years, how I built my business. I found rental arbitrage, and then I have built that into equity positions, and I'm building the entrepreneur life that I've always envisioned. So we'll get into all those details a little bit later, but I wanted to introduce myself and give you a little background on me and where I come from. So I'm originally from Connecticut. I live in Arizona now. I grew up in a family business that we specialized in alternative energy heating. So we focused on wood stoves, fireplaces, stuff like that. That was the bread and butter of the business. Alternative energy to oil and gas and those fossil fuels to help people when the power went out, or to cut down on the costs of expensive heating costs to keep their homes in New England warm through the harsh winters and the cold weather fluctuations that happen back up in the Northeast. Now I live in Arizona, so I don't really deal with that so much anymore, but that is a fantastic business, especially in colder weather climates. There's also a ton of other stuff that goes along with it. But anyways, grew up in that business. In 2003, I went full time to working with them. I dropped out of college, went to work with with my parents, helped them build that business. And over the next several years, we grew significantly. And my vision was really to continue to grow that business, but we ended up creating a lot of friction. It's a family business. I had different goals and visions than they did. And so ultimately, I ended up walking away from that business in 2009. From there, I went and ran the road in New England, still within the same industry. I worked with a few different manufacturers and had a few different sales positions where I was covering all of New England, some in New York. And I really got to know the market and the business well. And then in 2014, I had an opportunity to actually go and open my own retail store back in Connecticut in a different market. Wasn't directly competing with my parents' business, in case you're wondering, but I got to go and open my own business and did very, very well the first year and continued to do well into my second year, but then ran into several different factors, one of them primarily being two very mild winters back to back in a business that depends heavily on harsh winters, being cold and frigid. When it's 60 degrees on New Year's Day, it was pretty difficult to keep the business afloat. So that led me to a downturn in the business. I knew the business was going to tank out in 2017. So I doubled down, and I knew I was going to take about $250,000 hit on the business overall. And so that's where I got into real estate. From there, as the business was going down, I kind of doubled down and said, well, I can either pay off my vendors, or I can go and flip a house. And so that's what I did. So I flipped a house, and on my very first flip, I made about $125,000 on my first flip. Took myself about halfway out of the debt that I was carrying. And what I didn't realize at that time was how big of a flip that was, how big of a win that was, because most flips of an average size are not that profitable, but that was definitely a home run out of the gate. After that, I bought a couple of fourplexes out in Arizona, and I bought them sight unseen. The market in Connecticut in 2018 wasn't that great. So I started looking elsewhere, and I said, hey, no problem. I can go buy sight unseen in a state across the country. And ultimately, we bought those properties, and we ended up moving across the country to come here and live in Arizona. When we got here, we'd originally bought those for long-term holds, but we realized that maybe we were better off just flipping them, taking the cash and investing elsewhere because there wasn't as much cash flow in it as we needed. We had a lot of money tied up in it. And so we went through that flip process. And through that process, we used hard money and we got the properties renovated, got them re rented under with long-term tenants, and we were cash flowing. But at that point, the hard money was actually costing us more between the hard money and the mortgage than actually we were making in the rent. So I was losing money every month and had a ton of money tied up, a ton of capital tied up in that building. I didn't know anything about creative finance or anything like that when I got into it. So I had a bunch of money tied up in there and literally was going broke. I got to a point where I actually was contemplating bankruptcy because it was we were about 6 weeks away from going completely flat broke, and I didn't know how I was going to pay the mortgage that I had on my current property, like my actual house. I didn't know how I was going to pay that mortgage. I was just in a tough spot, and so ultimately, very last minute, we got out of that. A buyer came through at the 11th hour and bought those properties out from us. And from there, we went into another flip, which tied up some more cash. But at that same time, just after we got into the next flip, I found rental arbitrage. And so from there, I found that plan and I said, hey, I can actually get into this pretty cheap. And so we got into rental arbitrage. And from there, actually started building the business and building some significant cash flow right out of the gate. This was about September of 2019. So spent the rest of 2019 building out house after house after house while still had this flip going on that ultimately that flip I ended up losing $10,000. So you see a pattern. I went from 125 to 60. I don't know if I said that before, but on the second flip, I made about $60,000. And then on the second flip, I ultimately, when it was all said and done, ended up losing about $10,000. So I was like, all right, I'm doing something wrong with flipping because I'm just progressively going backwards with that. Uh, However, in the meantime, I built up to I built up to 3 houses in arbitrage. So I was renting houses and then subleasing them out on short-term rental sites like Airbnb, VRBO, and actually generating some significant income from those. Well, then we spent the whole rest of the year basically running all of our money and credit into building this arbitrage business, and everything was going good. We were growing very quickly. And then COVID hit in March of 2020. And in Arizona, we make all of our money in February and March. So we make that's our high season. We make a lot of profit in those months. So rode through COVID. Luckily, we were only down for about a month and a half because Arizona was the first state to reopen after the lockdown of 2020 with the whole COVID lockdown. So we were the first state to reopen. We actually did very well after that because everyone started coming to Arizona and were renting out the properties. So learned a lot of lessons along the way. I can't wait to share them with you. I'm going to be sharing them with you as we progress and in small doses through these episodes. But ultimately, the way that I got started was I found a mentor. I found somebody to actually teach me what they were doing and allowed me to follow suit and follow the steps along the way so that I didn't have to go and reinvent the wheel. And so that's, really finding a mentor was one of the best things that I ever did. And since then, I've found that there are mentors in many different categories, and I have several different mentors across several different categories. I work with many different people to help elevate me, and it's essentially like taking a shortcut. Really the biggest shortcut to success is paying a mentor to teach you exactly what they know. You can fast forward all of the hard comings and the problems that you're going to face. And rather than trying to figure it out by yourself, you can really learn and shortcut your way to success. It's really a fast track to success, finding a mentor to teach you. So that's what I'm looking to do here, is to teach you and teach you what I'm doing, and show you how to really shortcut along the way, learn from my mistakes, and really make it so that you don't have to follow those same mistakes. You can learn, you can build your business quickly and start building that cash flow. The numbers, when you find the right house in the right market, the numbers really make sense. So arbitrage ultimately is renting a property from a landlord or somebody who is, uh, you know, a property management company, somebody who's managing a property. You're renting and then subleasing that house onto those onto those short-term rental sites, and platforms where you can actually turn around, generate a profit. You just got to make sure that your numbers work, and then you can really grow quickly. You don't need a ton of capital to start. There are methods that you can use to work around capital, and ultimately you can grow very quickly. I've seen people grow to 10 houses within 3 to 4 months. Um, that was my original goal, but then we ran into a couple hiccups, a couple issues along the way that, I didn't necessarily learn through my mentor. And uh, also then we ran into COVID. So that kind of put the brakes on the business. However, once things turned around back in 2021, a little less than a year ago, I actually was able to quadruple my business. And now, um, we're turning with, right now, I actually only have about 12 properties right now. I was running off of 3 properties and doing about $200,000 a year. With the 12 properties, we're going to easily clear 7 figures this year. And that's gross, not net, but net is still going to be about 40 to 50% of that. So there's a lot of profit in this. There's a lot of cash flow, and there's a lot of opportunity. So as we grow, I'm going to teach you how I have taken all of this, the arbitrage method, to get going. Personally, I don't feel that it's a long-term strategy, because ultimately it creates a large tax liability. So what you need to do is arbitrage, and you're going to use that method to build your cash flow. And once you have that cash flow building, then you can go out and start acquiring property and start building that equity as you grow your business, and you'll grow into that true entrepreneurship, where you can use that equity to depreciate. You can depreciate out your capital gains, or your tax liability, I should say, and learn along the way. So that being said, I'm going to cut episode 1 here. If you are interested in learning how to continue to build, follow this podcast, listen to all the episodes, subscribe, leave a comment, and give me a review on the podcast. Would be greatly appreciated. Whatever platform you're listening on, reviews would be a great help. But go move on to episode 2 when it comes out, and we will look forward to seeing you there. And I'll teach you more about how I go and the exact steps that I follow to go build arbitrage and then eventually move into equity. I'll look forward to seeing you there. Bye.